Yair Rodriguez is out of UFC Noche, and is anyone surprised? Yair is not known to be a reliable fighter, and it got me thinking, who are the most unreliable fighters? So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to find these fighters and rank them. But before we start, please like the video because gathering this list was a pain. But let's get started. So let me explain the tiers. The first tier is cut this MF now, self-explanatory. These are fighters that have tested the patience of me and other UFC fans. And spoiler alert, Yair is in this tier, but we'll get to that. The second category is Hall of Shame. They haven't done enough to get cut, but they should be remembered for being unreliable. The last category is Thin Ice. These fighters are very close to moving up to the Hall of Shame category, but as of right now, they're safe. Only 3 tiers because honestly I couldn't think of more, and all of these fighters I'm about to mention are pretty bad. First off, Yair Rodriguez. He is out of UFC Noche against Silva, less than a month out. What makes this so bad is that Yair is an exciting fighter to watch, so there was a lot of hype behind this fight. I had Silva winning, but I was expecting Yair to start quick, start beating on the legs, and then Silva would put it on him as the fight went on. To make it worse, the replacement is not nearly as exciting, a very weak main event for such a big card in UFC Noche. Yair also ruined another UFC Noche before it was called UFC Noche. In 2019, when he fought Jeremy Stephens in Mexico City, he poked his eye in the first 15 seconds. So he ruined that main event. And then in the post-fight interview, he yelled at Bisping for some reason. Someone who actually lost an eye, so you should probably read the room. But we have to talk about his pullouts versus Zabit. Yair versus Zabit had so much hype behind it because stylistically, we were going to get a really exciting featherweight fight. Flashy and quick strikers, but Yair pulled out twice against Zabit. First in UFC 228, then on a fight night, again, both due to injury. Then, as we know, Zabit stepped away from the sport, mainly due to health issues. He is making a comeback, but it's in jiu-jitsu. But Yair blew it. Yair has been milking that Korean zombie knockout for years, and that can't save him anymore. He's in the cut this MF now. Next is Khamzat Chimaev, the dictator's favorite fighter. I shouldn't have said that, but it must be terrifying for Khamzat because I'm curious if that relationship hurts his career. I mean, he has to spar his son and pretend it's competitive. But anyways, he had a few pullouts. These I'm not going to give him a hard time for. 2 of the pullouts he had against Edwards were COVID related. He pretty much retired from the sport due to the lingering effects of it. He also pulled out against Whitaker. He also got sick for those. So these are not the reason why he's unreliable. What happened at UFC 276 is why he's on this list. Khamzat was scheduled to fight Nate Diaz for some reason. Khamzat misses weight by 7.5 pounds and the whole card is rearranged. Khamzat is set to fight Kevin Holland now. Diaz is set to fight Tony Ferguson. Why does this new card make more sense than the original? I remember feeling terrified for Diaz because it was not going to be competitive at all. So Khamzat's mistake actually helped this card. So for this, we'll put him on the thin ice category. Another thing that Khamzat does is that he'll promote a fight to be the most exciting thing, and then it usually doesn't live up to it. The most egregious one was his fight with Sean Strickland. I actually went to the press conference for this one, and the whole time they looked like they wanted to murder each other. They were throwing stuff at each other. Khamzat was talking about his dad, of course. Khamzat kicked him during the face-off. And then right before the fight, they touched gloves. Like, what happened to their beef? And then Khamzat proceeds to obliterate my parlay. He needs to get cut, actually. Conor McGregor. He's on here mainly because of the inactivity and the empty promises. He did have that pullout with Chandler after the Ultimate Fighter. But I actually had that fight favoring Conor, not because Chandler can't beat Conor, but because Chandler fights like a dummy and would probably prioritize having a fun fight over using his wrestling. But yeah, Conor's on here because how many times have we heard Conor say that he's going to return this year? Or whenever Dana is asked about him, he's like, oh yeah, we got something special for Conor, or we got something in the works for Conor. And after the last fight from Conor, if you could call it a fight, I think he deserves to be on this list. He also did a weird thing at UFC 200 where he tweeted that he was retired and refused to go to the press conference and it was pulled from the card. But mainly due to his empty promises, he's on thin ice. Justin Tafa, it is no surprise he is on this list. He has pulled out 7 times. He has pulled out against Pesosa, Collier, Hayes, Lima, Nzechukwu, Denise, Sutherland, and this fat ass actually missed weight against Hunsucker. What an unfortunate last name. His brother Junior also pulled out 3 times as well. I would say cut him, but the UFC already beat me to it. He was cut in last October, and good riddance, honestly. Paulo Costa. I almost ignored him for this list because I'm not going to lie, I'm a bit of a fanboy. His fight against Yoel Romero makes up for all that I'm about to say. But Costa has pulled out against Whitaker, Cannonier, missed weight against Vettori, and the fight was moved to 205. I hate when that happens because it sort of rewards the fighter for being irresponsible. But he pulled out against Hamza and pulled out against Bruno Ferreira. Not a reliable guy. And now after his finish over Mirzakhanov, he is sort of milking it for a title shot. And I just don't think he deserves one. He needs at least one more win. Put him against Navajo Sterling and then maybe he could get a title shot. Lucas Fernando is more deserving of a title shot, and he just got here. I think Costa deserves to be in a thin ice category. John Jones. There is so much to say about him. The pullouts against Stise and Stipe, the failed drug testing, the crashing into a pregnant woman. But the reason he's on this list is from what happened at UFC 151. Henderson pulls out, and the undefeated Chael P. Sonnen from the mean streets of Westland, Oregon, he steps up and Jones refuses and the whole card is scrapped. This was the first time a UFC card was scrapped in this way. So this alone puts him on this list. But we have to mention the Tom Aspinall fiasco. Jones wins his belt in 2023. Aspinall gets the interim later that year. Fast forward through Jones's injury and it's time for them to fight. And Jones just makes this process so difficult. He called out Alex Pereira for some reason. He was asking for $30 million to fight Aspinall. And as the deal was being worked, he just retires. He admitted a few times on interviews that he just doesn't like Aspinall. Something about Aspinall rubs him the wrong way. I think it's the veneers, but we're probably never going to see this fight. But Jones, for this, he goes into the Hall of Shame. Brian Ortega. I do not like Brian Ortega, and it has nothing to do with the fact that he got with Tracy Cortez, so stop asking. But pullouts against Diaz, Zombie, Lopez, Moicano. He had weight issues against his Sterling fight and it was moved up to a catch weight. Again, I hate this because it's rewarding the fighter for not being professional. But the reason he's on this list is UFC 303. He was unable to make featherweight against Diego Lopez and the fight was moved up in weight to save the fight. And then the day of the fight, he withdraws. Now, I understand that Ortega accepted this fight on short notice. And making that weight in 2 weeks is pretty hard. He was like at 170. But I don't like him, so I don't care. Then Dan Ige steps in just hours before the fight. He would end up losing. But because of this, Ortega needs to get cut. Last one, and I didn't want to do this, is Charles Oliveira. I love Charles Oliveira, but he has to be on this list. Pulls out against Dariush twice. And Islam missed weight so much in featherweight against Swanson, Stevens, Lentz, and Jury. All of this is enough to put him in the Hall of Shame for sure. But the reason he's on this list is for what he did at UFC 274. Oliveira is set to fight Justin Gaethje to defend his lightweight belt, and he misses weight. So then, as soon as the fight starts, he is stripped of the belt, and only Gaethje is eligible to win it. Oliveira then submits Gaethje and ends up winning. And this somehow made it worse because he won but still lost the belt. I love Oliveira, so he will not be getting cut, but he's going to Hall of Shame for sure. Honorable mention is Movsar Evloev. I didn't add him because none of these are really his fault. I mean, a motorcycle accident and getting sick 3 times. It's just that if you look at his Tapology page, there are so many canceled bouts. He might just be unreliable just due to his bad luck. Anyways, I know for a fact I missed some people. It took me so long. to put this list together. I was pulling a Jimmy Neutron while trying to write this video. I almost forgot my glorious king, Charles Oliveira, but let me know who I missed. I might need to make a part 2. Okay, that's pretty much it. Okay, peace.